everybody. Welcome to Teachers Whine with
Justine
and Jen.
Welcome to our first podcast ever. Thank you so much for joining us. We will tell you a little bit about ourselves before we get into our first topic ever. I'm Justine. Jen and I teach together at a junior high in Calgary. I teach phys ed. Right now, I'm only teaching online. And Jen?
I teach math and science, grade 9. They're great fun. Right now with COVID, I'm also online, but before that, I was in real life classrooms like this one.
Yeah, so we have had a bunch of things thrown at us this year, from anywhere of just not knowing that we were going to teach online to having to self-isolate at times. Yep. But we've made it through and the kids seem okay.
They seem okay. We'll talk about that afterwards, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think what we wanted to do with this podcast is kind of just share the teacher's perspective of the good and the bad with COVID. Like Justine said, so many things have been thrown at us. So we just needed an outlet to share that with you guys so you can kind of understand what's going on with us. So I'm going to take on the perspective of what happens in our classrooms because I've been in classes this whole year. And Justine's going to take on the role of what it's like teaching online. And then I'll give you my kind of pieces of what it's like in our second lockdown teaching online. Yeah, so I mean, with the frustration was with COVID, it's the most frustrating part is not knowing if our kids were going to be online.
Yeah.
We start off in the classroom, we start off with our routines of sanitizing everything, desks, having extra time so they can eat in their classrooms and sanitize all their desks. And then we found out on November 30th of 2020, we're all going online, which we weren't expecting.
Yeah. So, Jen, what did you think were the biggest or the hardest changes for the kids when they were coming back to school in September?
I think the biggest one was our level of sort of anxiety and nervousness that goes around with the situation, but also theirs. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know who they were going to be in classes with. And I think all the things that make school fun, your teams, your clubs, any extracurricular activities, are out the window. And so the first time I think they heard that, many of our girls and boys were like, what? No basketball? No soccer? And that was quite frustrating for them. And then also to the unknowns of, more so maybe with the grade 7, seeing us in masks on that first day and us seeing them in masks, not knowing what they truly look like was interesting and also added to some nerves.
Yeah. And then what's the biggest challenge? Because I know that with being in school that students are in cohorts and they're not supposed to be mixing with each other. So has that been much of a challenge?
That has been very interesting. Truthfully, I feel in one hand, they're kids, they're teenagers. It's their time to explore their peer groups and explore their identity. But now we're telling them to not do that. We're telling them to sit in one spot so they can't be as active as they want to be. The way I teach is completely different. I feel like I'm teaching maybe like 30 years ago in rows and at the front of the classroom versus, maybe interactive activities that I would use where they can actually mingle with one another.
I have to sing Jen's praises right now, though. She is absolutely incredible with the activities that she comes up with students. So I bet that you're feeling very stunted right now in your practice.
It felt like every way that I've been taught to teach had to go out the window because I couldn't do some of those activities anymore. Anything where they're sharing materials couldn't be done, right?
Yeah. And what do we revert back to? Direct instruction. Yeah. What else are we supposed to do?
Yeah, kids that can't deal with direct instruction, right?
Yeah, but then now you also have to throw in that you can't really do handouts or anything like that. So you also have kids trying to copy things down on a piece of paper on time and get what they're supposed to get out of the lesson. It's hard for you guys. I feel for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What else? What do you think have been some of the positives, though? What's gone well so far?
So I feel like what's been some good things is with where we teach. So we teach in the Northeast, and I've born and raised in Calgary, grew up in the Northeast, so I can speak to some of those challenges. But sometimes things just get a little out of control, not necessarily because we're in the Northeast, but maybe with the way things are communicated down, maybe the communication parents are receiving.
And with just our demographics in general.
Yeah.
So we do live we teach in a lower socioeconomic area. And just pretty much what that means for right now with kids being online is not everybody is going to have access to technology.
Yeah.
So how's that been now that you've now switched to online and now you're in my world, Jen?
So the other challenge too is our classes start at 8 a.m. as they do in normal regular school year, but they also do that online. And so then what that means is a lot of my kids are not up at 8 in the morning. So I'm often starting my Google Meets by saying, hey, start spamming your friends, start calling them, start calling their landlines, get them up online so they know what to do and they're not missing important instruction, right? Because I can't always record the videos of what I'm going to talk about, especially with teaching something as complex as math online. It's a lot more direct and a lot more following along and following the procedure. So I'm always like, you guys all need to be online and reinforcing that message.
Yeah, because when you miss one thing in math, since it all just builds, it's so easy to get behind really quickly. So then I will just quickly interject myself here because I have been teaching online since September. It took a while for everything to get up and running, but the way things are working for me is way different than it is for you. So I only have to teach one live session a week. And with you, you have to be online pretty much all day long. And so the kids that have moved from in-school learning to online just for this period of time to follow the proper restrictions, they are online all day in their regular classes, even though that's a lot of screen time.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that you're using, is it easy to fill that time in class or has it been really difficult for you?
It depends on the kid, to be honest. So to instruct and to actually go through the information that needs to be conveyed, that part's good. I can spend about 20 minutes saying, here's the lesson, here's where I need to fill you guys in on these gaps. And then as far as what the kids are doing at home, I'm not always sure. Some of them are completing the work and submitting it within the time. Some of them are submitting it days later, depending on what's going on at home, right? Mm-hmm. And we can't always control that situation. The other thing I wanted to add, and I've had this comment from my students, is a lot of them chose not to go into your class, like the hub learning, the online learning, because they feel that they can't learn online. So now they're being forced to learn online in a situation that they know that it's not suited for their learning, right?
Yeah, and they were able to kind of figure out this online learning thing before, because when everything was shut down at the end of last school year, they had to move to online for 2 months, 3 months?
3 months. 3 months.
For 3 months total. And so they got to know themselves as online learners. So those who they thought it worked really well for them chose to go into what we call hub learning, just with our specific school board. But that's just our online. So if we say a hub, that's what we're talking about. But yeah, so those kids were able to choose that, but now they're all being forced into it again. And when some of them knew that they were not successful with it last year. And so that must be a challenge for them.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge with that part is reinforcing to them that whatever we're going through, I will review it and go through more activities that I would in normal school settings once we're back in real classrooms.
And that puts so much pressure on you too, though, because now not only are you trying to get the kids to learn the materials properly, but you're also trying to follow the scope and sequence so that you're not behind for kids that decide to switch to online or come off online, so that everybody's in the same spot. Because in February, kids are actually allowed to switch. So if they were online, they can go to in-school. And if they were in school, they can go to online. It's really going to be a free-for-all again.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we have to try to follow the curriculum and be up to a certain point all at the same time as a whole board.
City, really.
Yeah, as a city. And so that's a lot of pressure, especially like people are going, it's only 3 weeks that you're online, but they're not thinking about the whole picture of what it's actually going to look like for the teachers and for the kids.
What's it like creating relationships when you're not actually in a classroom with these kids?
It's been a lot more difficult, and especially since I'm somebody who really needs, I really enjoy that aspect of teaching. It's one of the main reasons that I'm a teacher, one of the main reasons why I like being in the area that we're in too, because I actually feel like I can make a bit of a difference in these kids' lives or be something kind of steady for them. And online, that's taken away almost completely. I have some kids that I know, but I have some kids that I don't know at all. And it's been way slower to get to know them. I've tried to hand out surveys to get to know them. And, you only get some of those filled out. But what's kind of been happening is kids will ask me some questions, not necessarily curriculum related, when we're going through some lessons. So they're trying to get to know me, and I'll ask some questions back a bit. And so we get off topic sometimes. However, I do feel that relationship piece is so necessary, so I'm okay with it. And then at the end of a lot of lessons, I've had kids sticking around to literally just chat with me, and it's been nice. Hasn't been a ton of kids, but the few that are there have made me feel that I am able to still make those connections, even though it is different.
No, that's awesome. With that being said, because you're not in a classroom, where are all your kids coming from? Because they're not just from our school.
They are not. I have 6 different schools from all across Calgary. So I have some kids where it's inconceivable to them that somebody might not have a basketball, where we have other kids who don't even have a backyard. And it's been really crazy just to see or try to come up with activities when I have such a wide range of what kids have access to. Because again, I do have some kids who are pretty well off, and I have some kids who are really not. So it's been interesting that way. But because of those kind of dynamics, the teaching side of it has been really different too. So where I have 6 schools, I might share 4 of those schools with the same teachers, and then 2 of those schools with different teachers. So it's all just different teachers teaching them too. So I don't even have a set team that I can go to with similar problems to bounce ideas off of. Like, that community isn't so much there in that aspect geared towards the kids. Where it is there, a lot of teachers who are online have come together to try to support each other and come up with new ideas that we can do with students. However, it's not as student focused because it's not similar kids.
Yeah, the team that you need to bounce those ideas for those kids aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
So that can be quite challenging.
Yes.
I know you mentioned with your surveys and you're not always getting them back. So how does that speak to participation online?
It's not great. I think that principals were hopeful that if students were choosing to come online, that they would actually be participating and fully engaged, and it is not the case. I have some kids in my classes who have never signed on to my lessons once, and I have kids there every day too, though. So it's been really neat to see how willing actually in lessons that kids are to speak up and join into the conversation on the little chat box. However, it's also hard because while I know that these kids are coming into the lessons and getting the information, I still now only have about 50% of kids completing actual assignments. So it's been tough that way. And then the harder part to this is now dealing with 6 different administrations who have different ideas of how you should be dealing with kids not completing work or not showing up to your classes.
So you're having to navigate different expectations. And then, like you said too earlier, different socioeconomic statuses on these kids.
Yes.
That's challenging. And then you're also isolated because you're working online. So lots of challenges are being thrown at your way.
For sure. And I mean, however, there's always going to be a flip side of things. So I know that phys ed is not, and I need to speak about phys ed because that is what I teach, but I know phys ed is not every student's favorite thing. And my goal for phys ed is not to make you like phys ed, but to make sure that you're getting the health benefits of phys ed. And the kind of cool thing about teaching it online is there's this whole section in the Alberta curriculum that are the B outcomes, which is functional fitness, which is things like learning how media can impact your body image and like how a workout plan can improve your overall fitness and just little things like that, which I honestly didn't learn until I was taking kinesiology in college or university. And so what I've been trying to do is teach people how to find things that they're excited about doing and ways that they can be excited about fitness in a way that they're not able to do in school, where it's all individual. It's pretty much motivated, like they have to be self-motivated or motivated to get there a certain amount of hours for me. But yeah, it's just been completely different and really neat because I'm starting to be able to teach them how to be active in their lifetime instead of just go play basketball.
Yeah. Some more skills on basically kind of like what you and I do, because you and I often talk how we're quite active, but we're very active in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just be alone in my little silo and just lifting some weights or something, and you'd rather be playing a game or something. But in the end of the day, we're trying to teach, or you're trying to teach those skills to them.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think it's a slow build for it because it's concepts that are hard for them, but yeah, I think it'll be beneficial for them longer term than being in phys ed playing dodgeball for the 90th time when you personally hate dodgeball. So you stand in the corner and try not to get hit.
Absolutely. Especially with some of the boys that are taller than us. Yeah, no, for sure. And then, so with that being said, so you're focusing more on the skills on teaching PE online. I know you mentioned earlier about teaching other aspects of options. Mm-hmm. So you're not just teaching PE, but you're teaching CTF.
Yeah. So since our online kids are only enrolled in your cores, so language arts or English language arts, social studies, mathematics, science, and then physical education and health, they've kind of clumped mine together. They've also said to us, and this was probably 2 months in, now, since they don't have options, we want you guys to come up with option marks. So please, whenever possible, include art and drama in your assessments of them. And I've only had one project where I've tried to do that. It's a little bit more difficult because it's definitely not my specialty. So now we're getting other things thrown at us, and it's fun.
So the expectation has changed over the past couple months, while you're still, of course, trying to deal with just the simple things of participation, because I know that's something I struggle with since our second lockdown, but you've been struggling with that since September.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Jen. So we've been pretty hard on COVID, if you can follow me on that. But it hasn't all been bad necessarily. And it's so easy to focus on the negativity in life that we sometimes forget to talk about what's actually really good in life and making us happy and making our kids smile and, all those fun, fuzzy things. So what's something that you've been happy about over this pandemic?
So I think the first thing we need to kind of remember is the kids that we teach were born in like the mid 2000s. So they've grown up with devices in front of them. They can navigate through screens and coding and apps and anything else way better than we can. And we're pretty good with our devices, but they're 10 times better. And so I think one of the things, if we're taking it to the fact that we're teaching online, is you can really accomplish a couple of things. So the first thing is the kids can always work on their own pace. So a simple thing like just watching a YouTube video on a concept, they can pause it, take their notes on it. There's also videos that I've posted that have subtitles. So our kids that are learning English as an additional language can have subtitles in their native language, which is really, really cool for them. So they can access the learning a little bit better there. Also, even just with different tools, such as like activities where the kids are moving it around on the screen to access those learners that are more tactile. So that's been kind of cool. And then the other piece is like the collaboration that I've seen them. So giving them multiple meetings to meet on to talk to one another, even though they're at home, has been amazing. I've eavesdropped on those conversations in a breakout room, and they're fantastic. And I can really hear their thinking and be a little bit of a fly on the wall that they don't even know that I'm listening.
It's almost like they feel a little bit more comfortable in that atmosphere. And I'm not too sure why, because I found the same thing. And my kids don't even know each other. Yeah. And they're getting put into breakout rooms together. And like, they don't even know what school this other kid goes to. And they're able to do that. So I totally agree. It's been really neat actually seeing them, let's say, come out of their shell, because maybe when they're behind a screen, they don't need to be as put together or as in front of their peers.
Yeah, that peer pressure that I think teens face isn't there anymore, however that peer pressure looks, right? The other one I wanted to speak to was just before we went in the second lockdown, the amount of structure that was put in place for our guys in our school was amazing. So I don't even think we knew they needed this, but a simple thing of them not having to switch classrooms in between class changes, because we're, as teachers, the ones that are doing the rotating. It gives them time to actually have a break. They're not running to their lockers to grab whatever they need. They're not in the hallways trying to mingle, or even sometimes I wouldn't say starting conflicts, but conflicts arise because these transitions are happening in a very crowded space, that they're finding that there's more comfort in just being in their spot all the time. So again, that structure is super important. And I've found a stronger connection with my students because I spend 2 lunchtimes a day now with them, whether we're watching a video or playing a game, and just getting to know them on a different level, which has been amazing. So I think if it wasn't for the pandemic, that structure wouldn't allow for that type of connection that is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in terms of how the pandemic has been handled in specifically our building, I think that our administration has done a very good job. I think that this is really tough for them, but just hearing stories from some of my friends who are teachers at different schools, like, it's insane how unorganized and it can be in some places.
I agree. I think, and you were on mat leave at the time too. So in June, we kind of discussed what our new normal, would look like. And it was just amazing to hear all the ideas. So like coming into the building, especially I think in the beginning of in the fall when the numbers were lower, I felt totally safe being here. And I was so surprised to see how many of the kids actually complied with a simple thing of wearing their mask, sanitizing every time they come inside the classroom. It was just amazing to see, because the new normal for them obviously is hard. I think in a time when you want to socialize and, not worry about maybe something like sanitizing your hands or keeping a mask over your face. But I would say overall, they did fantastic while being in the building.
Yeah. And I know I'm online, so people might not really realize this, but I am supposed to be in the building. So I have seen things like that. And I honestly expected the kids to push back, especially the age group we're at. We're grades 7 to 9. So that's age 12 to 14 or sometimes 15. And so I'm so shocked that these kids really followed protocols and with very minimum pushback.
No, I totally agree. Your experience with you teaching online, what are some positives of this pandemic?
Well, I think the very first thing starts with that the kids had a choice. And I mean, like a little give and take, because I understand that some parents just made the decisions for them because if they're a higher risk, that definitely is a factor. But I think that it was really important that kids got to choose how they think that they learn best. Now, I don't necessarily think all the kids were able to make the correct choice, but I do think that choice in learning is so important, especially as we're trying to mold these kids into like competent adults. Yeah, and then I guess the other piece would be that I get to make all these connections with people that I never would have made connections with before, whether it's teachers, principals, kids from different schools, whatever it is. It's really cool to build this kind of new community.
Yeah, and a virtual community at that, right?
Yeah. Well, Jen, we have some fun games that we've come up with on this podcast. So we're going to do some different segments every week. So this week, we are going to do some teacher pet peeves.
Yay!
So let me give you one example.
All right.
My favorite is when a kid will raise their hand and then you're like, yes, little so-and-so. We'll call them little Johnny. Yes, little Johnny. And then they go, I have a question. Oh, really, Johnny? I didn't know you had a question. I didn't realize that's why you had your hand up.
That's funny. That's funny. I had to have a similar pet peeve to that one, but I'll talk about something a little bit differently. Recently, as we're getting close to winter break and things are being handed in to me, I got really excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, so-and-so did their homework. Super excited, go in to open it, got my book ready to mark everything, and it's blank.
Yep. That is very common with kids submitting their work. I cannot tell you how many times I need to give the feedback of, this is a blank template, and then a screenshot of what I see.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me, it's the rise and fall of emotions at that point.
Okay. How about this one? Miss Mahal, what are we doing today? No, I will tell everybody one time.
Yeah.
But I'll say that about 15 times.
Yep. Yep. Yes. Or the ones that are, I've said it 15 times and then I do get the honest kid that goes, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Can you repeat that? That's always fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's repeat my stuff 30 times.
Okay. How about, I don't get it.
Yeah. What do you not get?
All of it.
Yeah.
Did you read it?
Yeah, that's been a frustrating one as well. Absolutely. Not following the steps, not following instructions. Yep. And that happens online and in school. So that's nothing new that I'm dealing with. It's just on a different forum.
Oh, yeah. I'm just talking from all my experience.
Yeah.
There's just some things that once the kids get to know me, they know not to ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a rule of, if I've said it once, I'm not going to repeat it. So then I just I tell them openly, I'm just going to look at you until you figure it out that I've already repeated this. And then you can ask the person next to you. And I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but I think we need to think about them. Like Justine said, we want them to be competent adults. A competent adult isn't going to go to their boss to ask them what's the task over and over again, right? If they miss an important part, they will ask their coworker before they go to the higher up. And it's the same deal that we're trying to create in a classroom, but it definitely presents its challenges.
Yeah, I'm that student. I just go to my coworkers and go, what did that email say?
Yeah, that happens all the time. I'm not going to lie.
Jen's the responsible one.
Most of the time.
Okay. Can you think of any other?
The Kahoot seems to be a big one right now. So I'll end a lesson. I think everything's all good. They seem to say they're going to go do their work. And then I get 20 kids telling me they need to play Kahoot right now. And so I don't know if that's just they miss each other. Aww. So I'll often just find a math or a science Kahoot for them to play. I wouldn't say it's a pet peeve. It's kind of fun to see them do it, but it's more just like, oh, okay.
I know this is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was fun. I look forward to doing this with you every single week.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's any sort of information that you guys want to hear from our teacher perspective, please let us know in wherever you're commenting below. We've also got direct links to our social medias to give us a DM about what you guys want to hear about. And yeah.
So thanks for whining with us.
Yeah. See you guys later. Bye.